Arkansas Senator Tom Cotton chairs the Intelligence Committee. He is here with his thoughts on that in just a moment.
We look forward to that. But first, Lucas Tomlinson's reporting live from Washington. He's got more on this for us. So, Lucas, what were these people talking about in these chat rooms?
Well, Sandra, good afternoon. The conversations were so lewd I wouldn't be able to say them on cable news, especially if my mother-in-law was watching in Laurel, Mississippi. Now, President Trump's director of national intelligence has fired now more than 100 people in the intelligence community across 15 agencies over their alleged ties to these licentious conversations on an internal message board. Tulsi Gabbard told our own Jesse Waters last night she also revoked their security clearances.
Holding these individuals accountable is just the beginning of what we're seeing across the Trump administration, which is carrying out the mandate the American people gave him. Clean house, root out that rot and corruption and weaponization and politicization so we can start to rebuild that trust.
Now, the Manhattan Institute's Christopher Rufo broke the story exposing these chat logs from the National Security Agency's messaging platform, showing a group of people allegedly using it to discuss pornographic sexual fantasies under the guise of diversity, equity, inclusion. A spokeswoman for Gabbard says DNI Gabbard will ensure the IC refuses their mission to protecting the safety, security, and freedom of the American people and rid the IC of the DEI nonsense the Biden administration pushed for 4 years.
Their loyalty is not at all to America. It is not to the American people or the Constitution. It is to themselves. And these are exactly the kind of people that we need to root out, get rid of, so that the patriots who do work in this area, who are committed to our core mission, can actually focus on that.
I expect this subject to come up in future hearings on Capitol Hill with lawmakers outraged, and perhaps your next guest as well, Sandra.
All right. Teed it up perfectly. Lucas Tomlinson on that for us. Thank you. John.
Let's dig a little deeper into this and some other hot topics with Republican Arkansas Senator Tom Cotton, chairman of the Select Intelligence Committee. So your thoughts on this lewd and licentious chat room that was going on among intelligence officials, more than 100 of them getting fired?
Well, John, my first thought, if material is so inappropriate that not even Lucas Tomlinson will repeat it, you know it must be bad.
Exactly.
Obviously, this should not be happening on government computer systems or time, much less in classified intelligence systems. I had a chance to speak with Director Gabbard yesterday. I know that she's committed to holding accountable anyone who's engaged in this kind of misconduct. With such misconduct and such egregiously bad judgment, I don't think we'd want someone anywhere near classified information. She's also committed to getting to the bottom of why this was tolerated for apparently more than 2 years during the Biden administration. Look, these systems are designed for intelligence officers across a number of agencies to share information, let's say if they're collaborating on the nuclear program that Iran has. They're not designed for your own personal use, and certainly not this kind of wildly inappropriate use.
So give us some insight here. What gives rise to behavior like this at what is supposed to be a very, very serious set of institutions?
Well, it's hard to imagine, John, why anyone in the intelligence community would think that they could get away with this kind of misconduct, again, on a classified intelligence network that is designed for intelligence officers to collaborate on professional matters for work. And the fact that you had apparently more than 100 people engaged in this kind of misconduct does raise questions about what kind of oversight you had during the Biden administration and why there weren't more systems in place that could catch this content, or why those systems might have been manipulated. So I'm glad to know that Director Gabbard is taking this with appropriate seriousness and is going to hold those participants accountable, also looking back to why it escaped notice or might have been brushed under the rug during the Biden administration.
All right. I want to at the same time go farther afield and then closer to home for you over the issue of China. We had the president talking about it, said that he wants to invest in China. He wants China to invest in the United States. But your home state governor, Sarah Sanders, said investment only goes so far. Listen to what she said.
Arkansas was the first state in the nation to kick a communist Chinese company off of our farmland and out of our state. And we will expand that law with the Communist China Defense Act, divesting state resources from Communist China and banning our adversaries from buying land around things like our military bases and electric substations.
So how do you reconcile those two things? The president saying he wants more Chinese investment in the United States, and then your governor saying, do not buy on our farmland.
Well, I commend Governor Sanders and my legislature for making sure that China isn't buying up critical assets. For instance, land around Little Rock Air Force Base or land around electric substations. And our farmland is a critical asset as well. Remember, China can't feed its own people. China depends on food imports. We shouldn't be helping communist China to get more of our food products that are for our people or for friendly nations, pro-American peoples around the world. I've got similar legislation in Congress that would stop Chinese investment by Chinese nationals or Chinese Communist Party-linked companies in American real estate. I write in my new book, 7 Things You Can't Say About China, that China has a long pattern of doing this. For instance, trying to buy land around the Grand Forks Air Force Base in North Dakota, the site of many sensitive activities. There's a pattern of Chinese communists trying to get real estate close to very sensitive land, just like they floated a spy balloon across America 2 years ago.
I know another issue that's very close to your heart is Afghanistan, because you served over there, and the fact that nobody was held accountable for the disastrous withdrawal from Afghanistan during the Biden administration. But according to what the Defense Secretary Pete Hegseth said at this morning's cabinet meeting, there may yet be some accountability. Listen to what he said here.
Afghanistan and the botched withdrawal, have all the generals or command staff that were involved with the withdrawal been fired or relieved of duty?
Well, that's a great idea. I'm not going to tell this man what to do, but I will say that if I had his place, I'd fire every single one of them, Pete. That's a very good question.
Well, it's a question we've thought a lot about. We're doing a complete review of every single aspect of what happened with the botched withdrawal of Afghanistan and plan to have full accountability.
Lawrence Jones asking the question there. So what do you say to this idea that there's an investigation underway and that Hegseth plans full accountability for those who might have botched this withdrawal?
Well, I think that kind of after-action review is appropriate, John. It never really happened in the Biden administration. You also had a Democratic Congress at the time that had no interest in exposing exactly what happened in Afghanistan. We owe it to every American trooper who served in Afghanistan, and especially those who were wounded or the family members who lost someone in Afghanistan, to include the families of the Abbey Gate victims. We also have to be worried about the threat that continues from Afghanistan, because with Joe Biden's disastrous withdrawal, they have allowed terrorism to return to Afghanistan, the land from which the 9/11 attacks were plotted. So I commend Secretary Hegseth. I also think Secretary Rubio is probably going to do a look back as well, because the State Department is the lead agency for any kind of non-combatant evacuation, and they obviously planned very poorly in the lead up to the collapse of Afghanistan.
All right. Well, we'll look forward to what that investigation may bring. Senator, good to talk to you. Thanks so much for joining us. Appreciate it.
Thank you, John.